Hello everyone, I call myself Zondagskind and I like to play Civilization 6. Now when you play Civilization 6, it is almost inevitable that you get a Pantheon at some point. Some Pantheons are amazing and some are really bad, so let's try to put them into a tier list today. Do keep in mind that I play on single player, not multiplayer, on deity difficulty, and that I do like some abundant resources, New World Age, and good vegetation. And if you like this video, then do leave a like, and if you want to know when the next video goes live, then subscribe and ding the bell. Now let's go into the tier list. Alphabetically, City Patron Goddess comes first, but in my opinion it's at the bottom of the barrel. I've never had a game where I didn't find another Pantheon more useful. Apparently it's good with Spain because there's a synergy with building districts on other continents. I just never am interested in this particular bonus. F tier. Dance of the Aurora, on the other hand, is really good in my opinion. All these pantheons where a holy site gets adjacency from a terrain type is good enough that it can make or break your game. And not just with the usual suspects of Russia and Canada. I've also had Dance of the Aurora with Norway, and it really carried my early holy site adjacency, so I'm very happy to give this pantheon an A tier. Desert Folklore is basically the mirror image of Dance of the Aurora, with desert instead of tundra tiles. On one hand, you could argue that desert tiles are worse than tundra tiles. On the other hand, I find that sometimes you have an empire and there's this little patch of desert in between it where you can get bonkers holy sites, like in this game with the Khmer. So again, I'm very happy to give this an A tier. Divine Spark is just really a solid choice in a lot of games. In a lot of games, I at least want a religion, and in a lot of games I care at least about either science or culture, and sometimes they do combine, of course. So especially if you don't have any bonuses towards getting a profit, this is a very solid pick, and I would give this a B tier. Earth Goddess is really good in games where you care about appeal, where you want to go for national parks, because basically how I look at it is that the appeal that I want for national parks is also helping me get the faith for the naturalists to actually establish them. And sometimes you have a start that is just in very nice terrain, and it just gives you a nice opening of faith. It is a little niche, so it's only a C tier, but still very good and very fun in my opinion. Fertility Rites is a pantheon that has only recently clawed its way out of my F tier, because I'd never picked it until I had a game with Korea, where I got the builder, and that builder was very clutch in getting the pyramids as an early wonder. And for that, it can be good, but otherwise, a builder isn't that much production, and is a unit you'll build dozens of, so in my opinion, it's still only E tier. Fire Goddess is just very situational. In most games, it's not like you're going to have dozens and dozens of tiles with volcanic soil. But when you do have a couple, it's nice because these tiles can be awkward to improve. In fact, fissures you can't improve until very late into the game. And with the faith, you do get a little bit extra from it. So it's nice when it works, but it just doesn't work in a lot of games. D tier. God of Craftsmen is one that I really love, and I have to acknowledge the bias that I might have because I play with abundant resources most often. Also, there might be some recency bias because it synergized really well with Steam Age Victoria, which I played relatively recently. But my reasoning is, tiles with strategics are good anyway. You want to work them, you want to improve them, so they just make tiles better that you were always going to work. And that is why maybe objectively it's more like a B tier, but I am really happy giving this an A tier. God of Healing is another pantheon I haven't even tried out yet, just because I thought that the healing only worked on your own holy sites and that it was only useful on the defense. I have to acknowledge that apparently that is not the case, so maybe I should try this out once. Specifically, it might synergize with Scythia's abilities, but yeah, just for lack of having tried it out, I'm going to give it F tier for now, but this is one that might shoot up in the future. God of the Forge is one I undervalue. I don't remember when I last picked it, but I watched the Pantheon tier list of Comrade Kane, and he opened my eyes to just how good it is to be able to spend less production on your military units. And I'm always pretty diligent about getting them out in the ancient and classical eras and then upgrading them into more modern units. So this is good both on defense, but of course especially on the offense, and this is deserving of a B tier. God of the Open Sky is one I don't pick often just because whenever I see cattle and sheep, I think, well, those can be chopped if I want. Whenever I see horses, I think of God of Craftsmen. So it's one I pick very situationally. I do like culture as a yield, so this is definitely not in the trash categories. It's not F tier or E tier, but I think it's too situational to be any higher than D tier. How good God of the Sea is really just depends on whether your map is a naval map or not. It's really good to have the production of fishing boats, even though I wouldn't say it makes an early fishing boat on fish very workable. But yeah, it all just depends on how much you like naval maps. I like them quite a lot, so I'm going to go down the middle and say this is a C tier. Any ability that lets you pretend you're Tamar of Georgia should get a gold star for me, and I do really like God of War, but its optimal use case is when you don't have a faith economy, you do have a big army, and you're attacking into someone who has holy sites. That's a very niche situation. It's also good if you do have a faith economy, but it's too situational to climb out of D tier, I think. Probably the pantheon I've picked most often is Goddess of Festivals. I really like culture as a yield, and plantation resources are very common, especially in luxuries. The only thing you could hold against Goddess of Festivals is that you unlock plantations a little later on the tech tree, so you might not get an immediate benefit as you would from some other pantheons, but this is very much deserving of B tier in my opinion. If you don't like waiting for plantations, then maybe Goddess of the Hunt is more suitable for you. You unlock camps earlier, and food and production, especially in the early game, is a very good yield. In my opinion, this pantheon falls off a bit later on. But especially when combined with a good Temple of Artemis, this can be a really strong pantheon. You do need a bit more luck when having the right resources, but I would say this is on the lower end of B tier still. Initiation Rites is just pretty bad in my opinion. Getting 50 faith for something you might do maybe 4 times in the early to mid game is just not enough. If you insist on trying it, then try it out with a synergy with Julius Caesar of Rome. But in my opinion, this is might well be the very worst, F tier. On the right map type, Lady of the Reeds and Marshes is a lot of fun, especially Marsh is pretty makeable by just getting a wetlands map. And then of course there is the synergy with Etymedonki. If you can get that and you can get this pantheon, then you've basically auto-won the game. That is pretty niche, but getting just the production from these tiles isn't too niche. So I think this is good enough for C tier, especially since you don't have to improve those tiles. Building Wonders is a lot of fun, and Monument to the Gods can assist you with that. Now, I do think that I don't pick this a lot because I could be tempted to go for more wonders than usual and miss them more often than not. It still can help you. It's a little limited in scope, and of course you're not getting any of the other yields you could get from other pantheons. That's why I'm going with C tier, but I could see it moving up or down a tier as well. Religious Idols, on the other hand, just isn't very good because it doesn't give its 2 faith from mines over strategic resources. The bonus resource Copper is one you usually pencil down to just harvest, and luxury resources do include some good ones like diamonds, but also includes pretty poor ones like Mercury, which just aren't very good tiles, you don't want to be working them anyway. That's why I would consider this an E tier pantheon, and it might even be a candidate for F tier. The yields from River Goddess are pretty good. If you can get 2 extra amenities and housing in every city by putting a holy site next to a river, that's pretty good. Problem is, you need to have good holy site locations next to rivers, and unless you're the Kamai, that is hardly a given. It does work sometimes, and then it's pretty glorious, but I feel like this is pretty situational and deserving of D tier. Is Religious Settlements the pantheon I pick the most often? No, I just can't. Is Religious Settlements even the best pantheon in a majority of the games? Probably not. But I would argue that in every game it is not the number 1 pick, it's at least the number 2, at worst number 3 pick. This is just such a universally useful pantheon, and when you get it, when you're able to get it, it is so often the right pick. How could this be anything other than the only S tier of this tier list? If I had to elect my personal favorite, however, it would probably be Sacred Path. I've played this Pantheon with civs like Indonesia and Magnificence France, and it just transforms your civ into a faith civ even when it isn't. Yes, you would usually chop the rainforests, but this Pantheon is good enough that it's worth not doing that. And so I'm more than happy to give this an A tier, just like Desert Folklore and Dance of the Aurora. And finally, Stone Circles, famously advocated for by Carl Harrison of Firaxis and Stream Anjoria Extraordinaire. I really love how the images I'm showing right now are from a time where it really makes sense, because I had 4 marble tiles as Bull Moose Steady, you know, the appeal civ. Usually, Quarry luxuries just aren't that common, and stone is something you would normally want to chop. That's why it's extremely situational, and I have to give it an E tier, but I can't give it an F tier. I can't do that for Carl. So, there is the entire tier list, from the S tier of religious settlements to the F tier of God of Healing, Initiation Rites, and City Patron Goddess. Is there a Pantheon you wanted to have seen higher up the list or lower down? Let me know down in the comments. In any case, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you did like the video. And if you want to know when the next video goes live, then subscribe and ding the bell and you will stay informed. And I will see you then. Bye bye.